must die, and few can choose the manner of their passing. Woden would take Ator when it was his time. There was nothing Beobrand or anyone else could do to alter his weird. The men, pale-faced and hunched in their saddles against the wind and rain, listened, striving to hear what had caused Cynan to halt the column. The day was filled with the wind whisper of the forest, the groan of boughs, the sigh and drip of the rain, the stamp and snort of the mounts, and the jangle and creak of bridles and harness. No other sound came to them on the breeze. A stocky, broad-shouldered man nudged his horse forward. The fingers that gripped the reins were thick and stubby, the hands of a farmer. "What did you hear?" he asked. Cynan frowned, but Beobrand was not angered by Baduk King's failure to remain silent. He was so unlike his fellow novice monk. Both Baduk King and Wilfrid came from noble families, but where Wilfrid was often haughty and carried himself as one destined to rule others, Baduk King, still young, but a few years Wilfrid's senior, was a quiet, sober presence, thoughtful and humble. There could be no denying, though, that both men were quick-witted and knowledgeable, and Beobrand could not believe how long they each spent reading. "Perhaps it was nothing," Beobrand said, shrugging. "A trick of the wind, maybe." Cynan did not look convinced. "We have so long been surrounded by men and women in Kantovik, we have forgotten what silence is," said Baduk King. Beobrand sniffed. His nose was not clear, but he could smell well enough to note the scent of the wet loam, the lichen on the tree trunks, fungus on a rotting branch, the heavy aroma of the life and death of the forest. "And I'd forgotten what clean air smells like," Beobrand said. "How's your leg?" Baduk King reached down and rubbed below his left knee. "It aches," he said, offering Beobrand a thin smile. "And yet it pains me less than your chest, I fear, or Ator's." He flicked a glance over his shoulder. The scout had stopped coughing, but looked small and pallid astride the dappled mare he rode. The first mishap they had suffered on this journey occurred only 3 days after leaving Cantoirbe, and before they had even reached Frankia. Rough seas had not dissuaded Ferenbald, master of the Saslager, from taking them across the narrow sea, but a badly secured barrel of mead had fallen, breaking Baduk King's leg. He had been lucky not to lose the limb. They had found an old woman in Kantovik who the locals said was an expert in leechcraft, and for a price she had agreed to tend to the injured novice. Even so, it had taken several weeks for Baduk King's leg to heal. By the time he could walk again, albeit with a pronounced limp, winter storms were battering the coast. First, blizzards had kept them in the town. Then, when the snow had begun to thaw, torrential rain had made travel impossible. Annoyed at their talking, Cynan trotted his horse forward a few paces further along the path, where he sheltered from the worst of the rain beneath a beech tree. "I do not miss the stench of the city," Beobrand said, "but we should not have ridden today. We would have done well to wait for spring." "We had waited long enough," said Baduk King. "I yearned to see the wonders of Roma, much as some seemed happy to linger a while longer, enjoying the pleasures of Kantovik. I, for one, felt the time had come to ride." Wilfrid shook his head at Baduk King's veiled jibe at him. "I, too, think it was time to leave," he said. "There are many more wonders to witness on our journey." "Wonders," said Baduk King, shaking his head. "Yes." Wilfrid had made no attempt to hide his dalliances with the women of the town. His behavior had upset Baduk King, who believed it contrary to the teachings of the Christ. Beobrand had cared naught for which furrow young Wilfrid chose to plough. However, the husbands of the ladies were not so understanding. That very morning an angry man, made a cuckold by Wilfrid, had come looking for the young novice, murder on his mind. Beobrand, Cynan, and the rest of the warriors, armed and imposing as they were, had sent the aggrieved husband on his way.